think Israel is a good place for investing, period, objectively, and the impact investing just flows from that. I think one of the things that the country prides itself on is being the proverbial light onto the nations, and I think that solving impact-related problems certainly fits directly into that.
Hi, welcome to Impact Nation. Today we're very lucky to have Michael with us. Michael is an impact investor that lives in New York, and we're going to explore why Michael is investing in Israel, why impact investing is actually a very smart type of investing. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well.
I'd love you to start off by a little bit about you.
I'm Michael Lustig. I live in Manhattan on the Upper West Side, married with 3 kids, and they're definitely a huge part of my life. I grew up in a very Jewishly engaged home, so we always had a focus on Israel. We were brought up Zionist enough that my sister made Aliyah 21 years ago. So with my only sister here, I tend to visit quite a bit. And over time, in addition to relatives and friends living here, I've developed business interests here. So I end up spending close to 2 months a year in Israel.
Wow, that's amazing. I'd love to know a bit of your professional background.
I graduated from college with a degree in computer science and art history, very odd combination. And to make it even more weird, I went into finance. I was head of structured product and derivative trading at BlackRock. I was very, very deeply involved with financial rescue packages in 2008 and 2009. But frankly, I got kind of tired of that and got a bit burnt out and retired at the beginning of 2012 and decided I needed a break. And among the things that I've kind of picked up along the way was impact investing. Certain investments that had dual purpose, that were not just good financial return, but also had a social or environmental impact as well. Just by virtue of being in them, I discovered this burgeoning world of impact investments.
When you've got capital, so you invest it to get a financial return, and many people look at their philanthropic giving as something separate, a separate basket. What we're delving into here with Michael is how to use that capital and create the social impact that you might have philanthropically to create that same social gain, but create sustainable gain.
So impact investing has a pretty wide range of definitions. It's a business that is focused on making money like any other, but at the same time is, as part of its core mission, achieving some sort of social or environmental good. In my case, it was a solar energy company that I happened to be invested in that had multiple social as well as environmental impacts, and that kind of clued me into it.
What was your impact investing journey once you realized, wow, I've got gold in my hands, I can achieve my social goals and my financial goals together? What did that journey look like for you?
My journey was definitely indirect. I actually think impact investments are a form of conventional investments. They just happen to have dual purpose. So I've been very active philanthropically since I retired. When I was working, I was certainly writing checks, but I wasn't getting personally involved to any great degree. Once I had the luxury of not working, I was able to spend quite a bit more time on various philanthropy or philanthropic pursuits. And I've kind of married that, if you will, with my passion for impact investing, in that I've been trying to get foundations, endowments, federations, other types of entities that are trying to do something positive with their mission to simultaneously do something positive with their assets.
In a foundation, what are the mechanisms and methods that they can invest in into impact investing?
In the US, there's certain investments that can have certain advantages from a tax standpoint. So they can make what's called a program-related investment, which is something that is aligned with their mission. It's something aiming for positive returns, but usually concessionary positive returns, not high returns. And that's a method for some foundations to not grant out as much as they otherwise might have. So it's a bit of a loophole, meaning that the PRI can count towards their minimum 5% distribution.
Is there a way to give from within that 95%?
Certainly. The PRI happens to be one particular avenue. There are MRs, market-related investments, that are market return oriented, but are mission aligned. Mission-related investments are aligned with the mission of the foundation, but are aiming for more market-related returns. They don't count towards that 5%, if you will, but they are mission aligned. So that's more what I would emphasize if I was talking to an endowment in terms of what they probably should be looking at in terms of impact investments.
So let's just give numbers here. You're from BlackRock, so you can.
I can handle numbers.
A typical asset manager, what would their target percentage IRR be?
An easy way to think about returns is to compare things to a risk-free return. In dollar terms, we usually look at U.S. Treasury. Right now, short-term treasuries are in the 5-ish% range. Longer-term treasuries are in the 4-ish% range. So a PRI would ideally or probably yield something a little bit less than that. And depending on the degree of risk you want to take, a market-related type focused return would be higher than 5%, meaning you're taking more risk than the risk-free U.S. Treasury, so you're aiming higher than that risk-free return.
Does that include early-stage investing?
Even more so, or you'll achieve a bigger impact in an early-stage company. If you're just buying stock in an existing company, you're not giving that company new capital. You're supporting the price of that stock, but for the most part, you're not giving them any new capital or making any real financial impact on the impact that they're achieving. If you're investing directly in a new company through venture capital, through seed investments, you're giving new, fresh money to a venture that is doing good. So your impact is considerably greater in that case.
How do you define an impact investment? Give us an example of something you've looked. What did you consider?
An impact investment for me is something that has that dual purpose. I'm looking for positive financial returns. I kind of treat my philanthropy separately, so I'm not trying to do investments that are really geared to be philanthropy in disguise. My investments are investments. They're meant to have a positive return. I don't have any particular single theme. If it hits me the right way, I'm an investor in it. I'm an investor in a number of VC funds that are impact-focused VC funds, so I'm making investments indirectly through them. But then oftentimes when they make an investment, they give an opportunity to their limited partners to tag along and make their own direct investment in those companies, and oftentimes I've done that.
So can you give me an example of a company that you've invested like that?
One is called Amai Proteins. Amai makes essentially a sugar substitute that is bioengineered. This is a solution to essentially replace sugar in a healthy way that allows people to enjoy sweet drinks without the downside of having too much sugar.
What are the other things you look for in a company to really think, is this a solid investment?
Well, there's a lot that goes into looking at a company as an investment. Business prospect, competitive landscape, obviously the team that's running it, whatever proprietary technologies they've developed, but you also are looking at the impact, making sure that they are addressing that impact in the right way and as deeply as they can.
When you're building your impact portfolio, what do you ask for?
For something like Amai, I want to know how much sugar is being replaced by them. You can correlate that with health data and see, okay, wow, there are people who will be less on the path towards diabetes.
In our video, there was quite a big emphasis on the dual impact was health, but it also had a dual impact, which is environmental, because it's replacing sugar. Is that something you would look at as well? How much land and energy and water is being conserved? Is that one of the impact metrics?
Absolutely, and that's where the SDGs actually come into play, because there are SDGs on land use, and there are SDGs related to human health, and it's covering both.
You discussed why you love Israel and why you engage. Talk to us about how you view investing in Israel.
Israel is known as Startup Nation. Increasingly, they're focusing on impact areas. So it's a company that's not just doing something technologically, but doing something that has a good social or environmental impact using some brand new technology.
Why would you suggest someone looks at Israel as a good place for impact investing?
I think Israel is a good place for investing, period, objectively, and the impact investing just flows from that. If I look at Israel just objectively, without my Jewish lens on, you have a thriving economy. The GDP is over $500 billion a year. Before the war, it had been growing at about 3% a year clip. The government debt to GDP ratio was about 60%. Which is very low among the industrialized world. Just as in comparison, in my native United States, it's over 100%. The currency, the shekel, has been strong to the point that the central bank has been essentially, once again, pre-October 7th, buying dollars and selling shekels, deliberately weakening the currency so that the country can stay competitive with its exports. And the country does export quite a bit. Technology happens to make up more than half the exports, but it's a country that is a success economically and financially. At the same time, if I look at the standard barometer in the US, the S&P 500, and I look at the price-earning ratio there versus the Tel Aviv 125, the S&P looks like it's it's more expensive than the Israeli market. So if I was objectively looking to invest in Israel, I would say that the economy is strong, financially it's strong, yet the market, for structural reasons probably, trades cheaper than the United States. So using the kind of the Warren Buffett method, I have a bigger margin of safety when I buy cheaper assets, so Israel is attractive. If I then layer on the impact world and the startup ecosystem that has such an impact focus, if I combine those two aspects, it becomes a no-brainer.
Let's speak to the bigger problems that we see the world facing and how is Israel addressing those?
I am going to quote a report from Goldman Sachs that basically says to halt climate change, the world needs to spend about $6 trillion a year for the next decade, which is not going to happen. So we're not turning things around. We're trying to mitigate where we can. I think that Israel is a light onto the nations with respect to what it's been doing in terms of developing new renewables, more efficient solar panels. There's all sorts of technologies that have implications on climate change that are being developed here as a result of the startup ecosystem.
So, in other words, Israel's really looking forward towards the problems that are coming up in the world and really filling that space.
Certainly, and that's, it's simultaneously, there's dual purpose, because if you're solving problems, you're creating viable businesses.
What would you think Israel's impact KPIs should be as a country?
What I would recommend is, in general, looking at the SDGs, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 goals. There are 169 subtopics with over 200 different indicators. So I would basically look to those indicators and see what can be addressed and where you can make a difference. We can all do our part to move things in the right direction. And I think a lot of what we're seeing in the Israeli impact ecosystem is indeed doing that.
And in terms of the founders that you meet, what do you think of it?
Obviously, I'm a fan. People in the impact space in Israel are really incomparable. People who have such pure, wonderful motivations, are so focused on what they're doing, are doing amazing, amazing things and really innovative and thoughtful things. I'm so glad that I'm able to invest in them.
Give me an example of a founder or an entrepreneur, CEO that's just inspired you.
I'll mention one that I happen to be invested in, Miriam Goldman, who's Accessible Go. Miriam is inspiring. She has essentially created a solution for people that have accessibility issues to travel as readily as you or I would to anywhere in the world without having to worry about the normal things that someone with accessibility issues may have to worry about. The first time I met her, I said, wow, she is passionate about something and has a great solution. She is the right person to run this type of business. I want to get invested there.
When you met Miriam, did you look at it as a philanthropic opportunity or did you evaluate it as a good business opportunity as well?
I actually, when I look at things, I'm financial first. So I was looking at it purely as a business opportunity. I think she had identified a niche, a business opportunity that no one else was addressing the right way. She came up with the right way to do it. So it's both something that I think is a unique offering out there, and therefore has a lot of financial upside, while at the same time addressing a social need.
So we know that in Israel, there's thousands of entrepreneurs that are either in the climate space, climate tech, food security, water, empowerment, equality, economic growth. How has October 7th affected your thinking of investments in Israel?
October 7th was obviously just the most horrible thing imaginable. It obviously has repercussions on the country that will be felt for decades, because of the necessary response to that, many soldiers were called up for reserve duty. Many of the people called up for reserve duty are of the age where they happen to be working in the startup industry. So the startup industry has been inordinately affected by the war. So there are many companies where the founder, the key individuals are unfortunately having to serve right now, and their company can't move forward. So it's created some dislocations on the funding side of these companies. It's also created, and I hate to say opportunities, but opportunities for investment. If you have cash to spend and you're looking for a good investment, what was a good investment before is actually a great investment now, because you're able to put your money to work simultaneously at a better valuation because the market has properly repriced itself, but also you're injecting money into an economy that needs it. Particularly if you're Israel focused, as I am, you have a dual impact that way as well.
Have you been concerned about the vulnerability of the assets of the company?
Well, Israel is an industrial powerhouse as a country, and also a very mighty country militarily. So I'm not worried about the viability of the country. This is a temporary dislocation. It's something that is definitely going to normalize not too long from now. We're at a point right now where a lot of the people on reserves have been allowed to return back home and are back at work. So the economic dislocation has definitely been reduced quite a bit already.
You're from New York and you're living here in your day-to-day, and then you arrive in Israel. What inspires you here? And when you see the companies?
To tell you the truth, it's not the companies that are inspiring me, it's the whole country. The whole country has come together in just the most wonderful way. Right before the war, the country had been going through a year, basically, of dislocation because of proposed judicial reforms that were splitting society and causing their own disruption, and even causing capital to not necessarily come to the country. And literally all the protest movement pivoted instantly to become a social support movement in the most wonderful and inspiring way. I'm probably not even conveying it well on camera because I'm starting to tear up on this. The country really came together. So it's been an extremely unifying event, while at the same time being born out of something so horrible and unimaginably horrific. And I hate to try to paint something good as coming from it, but something good is coming from it in terms of Jewish unity, Israeli unity, and that will translate into success on the financial and company side of things. But I'm frankly not even focused on that right now. I'm thinking more societally, just so impressed and heartened.
Well, that's amazing. Often when we sit here, we don't see everything so clearly being here, so I appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming to Israel and from New York being so dedicated. Thank you, Michael, for always being a part of the ecosystem of Impact Nation and for sharing your knowledge here with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
L'chaim.
L'chaim, yes.